All right, let's talk about tenants, setting up users. The way that you're going to set up tenants is you're going to go into the system and you're going to hit that new button. So I'm going to go over to my system and take a look. And you recall a few minutes ago, we were logged in as the administrator for a customer. And when I clicked that new button there was only two things there. It said units and users. That's because we were as an administrator. As an administrator for a customer, we cannot create any additional customers. We cannot create partners. We can only create units and then other administrators in our system, right? But right now, I've re-logged in, and I've logged in as the administrator for one of my partners. And so I have more options. If I click on the new button, you'll see I have create a partner, create a folder, create a customer, and create a user. And we'll talk about each one of those. But that's how you're going to add a new one. You're going to go to that new button, keeping in mind that by using APIs in our billing systems and provisioning partners, you can do that completely automatedly. So in Acronis Cyber Cloud, entities that have a relationship with the service provider, such as a reseller or end customer, are known as a tenant. And these tenants are managed in the Clients tab. So you can see the Clients tab is right over here. And this is your list of clients. And remember what I said, you can sort these by name, you could sort them by status, you can sort them by the amount of storage they have, and so forth. Each tenant can have one or more user accounts for them. And oftentimes it's necessary to have at least one administrator account for the user, even if it's one that you're going to use on their behalf, for service administration in the system. So you'll see that there's another tab here, users, and it lists all of the users that I have. And again, I can view a new user. Now, keep in mind what I said about breadcrumbs. I'm going to go a couple of levels deep in the system. I'll go to demos, I'll go to John, I'll go to AceQ4, and I'll go to test. So now, look, I am 5 levels deep in the system. And you'll see my breadcrumbs up here on the top, and I can go back to the appropriate place in the system that I want. Depending on where I'm at in the system, when I add something new, it'll add that thing underneath the level I'm at the breadcrumb system. So if I added a new user here, this would be a customer's user. Now I can tell this is a customer because it's only got a little house and not this big apartment building. Let me show you that going back up the system a little bit. You'll see that these ones have an apartment building, like 3 little buildings together. And if I click in that, underneath this partner, I'm going to have customers. You can tell they're customers because they look like a little house, just one single family house type thing, right? All the tenant types, with the exception of customer, can be nested to create a hierarchy. So partners can have other partners, partners can have customers, customers can have units, units can have units, right? So there's a lot of nesting that can go on. Let's talk about the types of partners, types of tenants there are. The one that you guys are going to be most concerned about with is a customer, but let's start with partner. As I said, at every level of the system, you can have partners underneath you. And so you can have one or more partners who each have partners, customers, or folders. As a partner, you can also have an end customer or a company as an organization, and they can have one or more units underneath it. And we'll talk about units here now. A unit is simply a subunit of an end using company. So as a customer, I might use this for each of my branch offices or each of my departments or each of my major administrators. I can use those in combination any way that I want. We don't define them so that the customer can define them, but you can create as many units as you want. In the same way that customers can have units, partners can have folders. And it's, again, simply a hierarchy thing, an administrative thing. I might have them for each of my brands or each of my locations, different countries, and I can organize those in any way that I want, but they are called folders. Now, the difference between a folder and a unit, as we'll discover, is that I can turn a folder into a partner and a partner into a folder. And so that's how it differs from a unit, other than being for a partner. For each of the tenant types, you can have a number of different kinds of accounts. There are 2 kinds of accounts. There are administrative accounts and there are user accounts. Most of the people in the hierarchy are going to be administrators from looking at a hierarchy situation. But if you're running a system where there's lots of end user in the system, by number, there'll be more end users, right? So an administrator has all of the privileges of creating new accounts. A user has no access to the management portal. They only can go to the services and the services only. At each level in the system, we can have users or administrators. So as you can see, partners can have partner administrators, folders have folder administrators, customers have customer administrators, and units have unit administrators. And then once we get to the customer level, we can have users and then unit users. There is a toggle in the system that prevents superior tenants from seeing inside of the below tenant to allow them to manage them. So if I wanted to do self-service and didn't want my partner who's serving me to get into my system, I can turn off that feature. We'll take a look at that. So what are the things that can be done by users and administrators in the system? Well, if I'm just an end user, all I can do is download the software and use a service. That's it. Now, for some of the services, it really makes a lot of sense that end users have access. For others, not so much. It makes perfect sense that end users should have access to the file sync and share system, because that's how they're going to utilize it. On the other hand, you may not have them accessing, at least not at the user level, the backup system. That you may want the administrator to push that down onto that user instead. Just depends on what you're trying to do. When it comes to the customer and unit levels, we can have administrators. And like I said, for many of the features in the system, you're going to be required to have an administrator for that. You will see that customer and unit administrators can create tenants, they can create accounts, they can download and use the software, and they can also create reports. Now, all of that being said, they can only do that to their own tenant. They can't make their customer, they can't make a partner underneath them. Only partners can create partners, customers can only make units. And they also cannot do reports about anything other than their own system, right? If I'm a partner or a folder administrator, in other words, I work for a partner, I can do just about everything in the system, except you'll see that they can't download and install the software. There are some features for which you will need to have a customer's administrator to do that, which isn't that big deal because you're the one that assigns customers administrators and you can create one for them. Unless, of course, your customers told you not to do that. So it is possible to be locked out, but you'd have to agree that that's part of your system. Following services can be selected when creating a new tenant. And so we have been discussing these. Cyber Protect, that includes Cyber Protect, backup, and disaster recovery. Our file sync and share product, cyber infrastructure, and that is for your usage. Remember, we said that you can get charged for making S3 object storage available to your customer, right? Physical data shipping, which we'll cover in depth tomorrow, and then our notary product as well. For the cyber protection service, one or more additions can be selected. And remember, we said that there's both a backup product and a cyber protect product, and each one of them has a standard, advanced, and disaster recovery edition. And you're going to need to select that for that customer. If you have a customer tenant, they only get one. For partners and folders, you can make available as many of them as you wish to make available. I will remind you that depending on which data center you're in and which service provider you're with and what kind of decisions have been made at the superior levels to you, some or all of the services may not yet be available to you. So when we rolled out Cyber Protect, we rolled it out to all 17 data centers, but we rolled it out slowly across the world. So some data centers had it sooner than others. And also, not all the service providers immediately made it available for all of their partners. So you may not have had it unless you specifically asked for it. So just keep in mind that that's why you may see some inconsistency with what you experience in these demos and what you see in your system. The services can be customized by disabling and enabling its corresponding offering items, which allows you to make your unique set of functionality. And the set of services and offering items configured in a tenant is known as the offering. We'll be using that term a lot. The offering determines what will be shown in the management portal as well as what is available when creating the child tenants. Offering items also have quotas, and so you can further refine the offering. So we can choose how much of a thing that we're going to allow the user to have.